Hey everyone, what's up? It's Steve here from socialtransformation.us, and today I wanted to share with you a new exercise that I just discovered that's designed to help you overcome social anxiety. And the exercise is called Radical Implosion. And from what I gather, it seems to be an extreme form of exposure therapy with a little bit of a twist. So, the idea behind exposure therapy, if you don't already know, is that we often need to go outside of our comfort zone and try new things before they become less anxiety inducing and we become more familiar with them. And this type of therapy has shown to be pretty effective for some people who have social anxiety. Now, this technique called radical implosion apparently was first started by a popular cognitive psychologist named Albert Ellis. And what he did was, or rather, the idea behind this exercise is to put yourself in a situation that is so intimidating and so anxiety inducing that it makes other situations seem way less anxiety inducing in comparison. So let me give you guys some examples because that was sort of just the definition of what this is. But what Albert Ellis did was when he was 19, he had a fear of approaching girls, common fear. And what he decided to do was to approach every woman who sat down alone on a bench at the New York Botanical Garden. And when he did this, the first 30 people that he approached walked away immediately. But he also approached many other people, over 100 people, and he just exposed himself so much to the idea of approaching women that he became less anxious about it. And there's other great examples of this radical implosion idea. And I've actually realized in the past that I've actually practiced a form of this. But one example I've also heard about is from the actor and comedian Will Ferrell. He used to have a little bit of shyness and a little bit of social anxiety. And what he did to overcome this was he would do crazy things in public, like walking around without pants on. He would walk around his college campus without pants on, just to sort of get a reaction from people, just to do something that's so crazy. It's meant to be embarrassing. It's meant to be bizarre. And when he did stuff like this, when he did these crazy things in public, of course he would get pointed at and laughed at, and maybe he even felt a little bit embarrassed. But doing these crazy things actually helped him to overcome his anxiety because he would put himself in such an odd situation that, normal everyday situations just became, completely insignificant in comparison to these crazy things that he would do. And I have a couple more examples of these that I wrote down here because I remember way back when um, I heard about this guy called Hypnotica. He was like a pickup artist a few years ago. I don't know what he does now or what exactly he considers himself. But one of the things that he shared was that in order to overcome his anxiety, one time he strapped a dildo to his head and started walking around in public. And it's just, crazy stuff. And I understand that's really bizarre and really out of this world. But, doing crazy things like that can just, once you do something crazy like that and, you walk through crowds of people and they're pointing at you and laughing at you and making fun of you and you're getting a little bit embarrassed, sure. But, after you do something like that, then simple things like a job interview or approaching a new person or asking a girl out on a date seem, completely meaningless in comparison, right? It's like, I used to, I walked around the mall with a dildo strapped to my head. You know, I'm going to be afraid to approach girls. It doesn't even, it's not even the same type of thing. So doing these embarrassing things can be kind of helpful. It's almost like the idea is to embarrass yourself on purpose, just to sort of overcome that fear of embarrassing yourself, or feeling shameful about yourself, or wanting to hide yourself. And I've done a couple things like this before in the past. I made a video earlier called Embracing Your Weirdness. And in that video, I shared a little story where what I did was I had a big poofy jacket, and I was around a group of people, and I just ran as fast as I could, and I dove onto the ground, and then I slid on the floor in my big poofy jacket. And didn't make any sense really. I wasn't trying to accomplish anything. I just wanted to do something that was weird and bizarre, just to get out of my shell. So doing things like that, doing purposely weird things that can be embarrassing, can actually be a really interesting way to lessen your social anxiety. Now, I don't know if these techniques are going to work for everyone. I think you have to be careful actually with stuff like this. I wouldn't recommend someone who has a lot of high social anxiety to just, randomly do bizarre things, because that might have a backlash effect where, you end up kind of traumatizing yourself by doing something so weird and so embarrassing and being laughed at by so many people. But I do think that for some people, doing weird things on purpose and purposely embarrassing yourself can actually be, it might be something worth exploring. Back in high school, I did something not as bizarre. Well, maybe it is kind of bizarre, but I used to have this beanie baby. It was like a ferret beanie baby, and I would put it in my pocket and have its head sticking out, and I'd walk around school, and a lot of people didn't really notice it, but people did notice it, and that was a little bit of a more subtle way of just kind of being weird and being bizarre, and just not being afraid of what people think, because that you're doing something silly. You're doing something silly. So when someone else points at you and laughs at you and is like, "That's silly," it's like, yeah, I know. That's the point. That's why I'm doing it. So I think doing little things like this can be kind of interesting, right? Like imagine, you put like a bunch of mustard on your shirt before you go food shopping or something, before you take a walk around the block. Doing little things like that can just be a good way to get yourself out of your shell. And it also protects you from taking insults or taking people's laughter too personally, because that you're doing something weird. That you're doing something silly. And oftentimes you're doing that silly thing for the whole purpose of getting a reaction, for the whole purpose of getting people to point and laugh at you. So apparently this technique is called radical implosion. And it seems like it's a extreme form of exposure therapy, right? Because you're putting yourself out there, but you're putting yourself out there in sort of an extreme way. And I just wanted to share this with you guys, because when I found out about what this idea was called, I was super excited, because I'm like, oh, I've done things like this before, and I've heard about people doing things like this before in order to overcome their social anxiety. So hopefully this maybe gives you some ideas. Maybe if you're feeling adventurous enough, you can try something like this. I just had to share it with you guys. I think it's a really cool idea. I don't know to what extent you might want to take it. I think there's subtle ways of doing this, just purposely having a stain on your shirt and not caring versus, actually, wearing a dildo on your head. That's a completely different story. It's a completely different level of 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 putting yourself out there and being extreme and radical. But yeah, I had to share that with you guys. So thanks for listening, and I hope it helps you. And have a good one, guys. Peace.